Hiya guys, how are we all? Hope you're doing okay. A massive Wentworth fan here. This is going to be first of many videos I'm going to be doing on Wentworth. Basically this one is going to be a bit of a review of season 4, like an all series kind of season from beginning to end type of review, which I'm going to try and keep it as short as I can. Because after this video I am going to be doing a season 5 predictions and what we already know. So probably best to say that a bit of a spoiler alert if you haven't already seen season 4 and you don't want to know what's going to happen. I'm assuming you've tried to avoid Facebook as much as possible because it's kind of all over the place at the moment. Because obviously everyone's very excited for season 5. But there will be spoilers in this, just in case you haven't seen this series. So, let's start from the beginning. So season 3 ended with the big fire, which was pretty fantastic, if I say so. Um, it was obviously very dramatic, and then we saw the freak being taken away with the police, and then we saw Kaz Proctor being brought in as a prisoner and given B the slash throat sign. So, season 4 begins. I think it's 3 months, a couple of months after the fire at least, and Wentworth has been rebuilt, and B and her crew are coming back to the newly built building. Um, Going by the beginning of season 4, it looks like Kaz and her crew have already been placed in Wentworth before B and her crew come back. So Kaz has kind of like already made a few kind of like allies, as to say, in season 4 before B even comes back. But they come back and they're welcomed by some of the old faces like Juice and that Asian girl. I can never remember her. Tina, that's the one. They're all kind of welcomed back, and Juice gives B a shiv, explaining that she might need it. Um, And it kind of like goes from there. I mean, we've got B versus Kaz, but it doesn't sort of like explode at the start of the series. Um, I think at the start of the series, it's more of the fact that Ferguson comes in as a prisoner, and obviously Vera is now governor, which I think is quite a good move. When I seen the trailers that Vera was going to be governor, I was a bit concerned, I'll be honest. Because I always remember in season 1 when she was acting governor after Meg Jackson was killed, she was very, very out of her comfort zone being governor. But she was brilliant in season 4. I'll be honest. Um, I don't know if how I feel about her continuing being governor. I think she'd be better off maybe as deputy. But I don't know. We shall soon see. Anyway, back to Ferguson. So she's now entered the prison as an inmate, and Vera wants to keep her in protection, but Ferguson has a few tricks up his sleeve, and she plans on getting out of there. Now, remember, Ferguson has a few things on Channing, and maybe one or two of the other officers as well. Anyway, I think by the end of episode 2, she's already got herself out of protection. At the very end of the episode, Channing decides to move her out of protection as Ferguson still has dirt on him, and by his reaction, it's kind of looking like he doesn't even care if Ferguson gets killed, because then his secrets will go with her. So in episode 3, Ferguson joins the rest of the prisoners, and she is kind of like, well, she's hated. She's completely hated, but she's moved into the wing with Kaz and her crew because Kaz and her crew don't have any history with her. But obviously Ferguson has to be monitored 24 hours a day by the officers. Um, but episode 3 of season 4, that was very, very dark. I felt very depressed by the end of that episode, which doesn't really happen to me a lot. I think I only ever, well, not often, but I can remember there was a similar time in Bad Girls. I don't know if ever you saw Bad Girls, but in season 1 of Bad Girls, when Rachel, I think her name was, a girl, she hung herself, and that was a very dark episode. And I got the same feeling with this one with Ferguson, because she decides to set up a bash-in. She decides to get B to try and bash her to get her out of the system, make the women happy type of thing. But in a bit of a twist of turns, Juice and her gang decide to gang Ferguson. And in all the background of this episode as well, we kind of getting flashbacks of when Ferguson was in the mental home. So it's a very dark episode of her dark moments, and she even we even see a flashback of her psychiatrist or doctor or whatever it basically fucking her. So it's very dark, and Ferguson gets ganged, i.e. raped by Juice and her gang. B turns up in the shower block and finds Ferguson on the floor, and there's blood everywhere, and it's very gory, very gory. They didn't hold back in this, but they never do in Wentworth, I'll be honest. And Officer Miles as well, because she obviously she's been paid off by Ferguson to help set this up. So they're all kind of worried and thinking shit, they're going to be in trouble. But they get Ferguson back, and they all keep quiet. But Kaz then finds Ferguson and decides to help her and take her into her crew, basically. This kind of, from this moment onwards, it kind of sets the scales now for the rest of the series, because up until this point, it wasn't so much, it was boring, but it was kind of like the same thing. It was kind of like Ferguson stuck in that one room, in the psychiatrist section, and then she's brought in to the general, but it's kind of like she's not really interacting much because she's being watched 24/7. But I think by the end of this episode, as dark as it is, it kind of picks up then. And episode 4 of season 4, I thought was terrific, because at this point Ferguson plants a seed in Kaz's head, and basically plants a seed saying that Mr. Jackson raped Ferguson, which obviously isn't the case, but Ferguson has her issues with Mr. Jackson. So Kaz decides to basically teach Mr. Jackson a lesson. But at this point, B is kind of getting quite friendly with Allie, who is in Kaz's crew. So Allie decides to warn B that Mr. Jackson is going to get attacked, and B tries to warn him, but she ends up doing it on Miss Miles' radio, which everybody hears, and word gets out that B is a screw lover. So it's quite an eventful episode. You also have all that going on with the conjugal visits, and Boomer finally gets to see her man, which is absolutely hilarious. So it all kinds of kicks off. B's branded a screw lover, and in a twist of turns, she decides to attack Mr. Jackson herself in order to prove that she is not a screw lover. And you can tell by the end of that episode, her face says it all. She's just didn't want to do that, but she had to. So kind of going on then, it's basically Ferguson starts causing trouble, starts planting seeds and lies in Kaz and her crew's heads. B starts to get closer to Allie. Mr. Jackson and Kaz do not get on whatsoever. I don't know how that's going to continue into the new season, but they don't get on at all. Then up to about episode 8, we get that massive cliffhanger episode, which is absolutely fantastic. It's when Ferguson goes to kill B, and in exchange for Kaz to take care of Nils Jasper, who is the only witness that could really send Ferguson behind bars. And obviously at this point, B has been called in as a witness against Ferguson, which hasn't been publicly spoken about, but Ferguson knows who it's going to be. So Ferguson decides to try and kill B by drugging her and drowning her in the kitchen, while Kaz has a diversion and does a sit-in protest. That is until Mr. Jackson comes across the recording of what put Kaz in jail, which happened at the end of season 3, which obviously shows that it was Ferguson because it's her voice, which we knew, but Kaz didn't know. So Kaz absolutely flips out. in this episode as well, she has just received, I think it's 10 years, or is the previous episode. At some point before this episode, she finds out that she's got 10 or 12 years. And then she finds out it's Ferguson. So they get to the kitchen where B has practically been underwater for ages at this point. So Allie tries to save B. Kaz is basically having a massive fight with Ferguson. Ferguson gets her hands burnt. It's a very intense scene, I'll be honest, but it was absolutely brilliant. B looks like she's dead. She literally looks like she's dead in this episode, and there's no way she's going to survive. But she does survive, and then she does survive, but unfortunately she does get a bit depressed because something I forgot to mention, up to this point as well, B has got in touch with her sexuality, and she's grown very close with Allie, and they have kissed, and they've been having secret meetings in the cupboard of the kitchen, really, and Ferguson's clocked onto it, which is how she managed to trap B in the first place. But anyway, moving on, Kaz decides to plant a seed in B's head that Allie had something to do with helping Ferguson to kill her, which doesn't go down very well. B decides to write Allie off, but she's very depressed about it. I mean, B's been self-harming through the whole of season 4, so B's in a dark place, but she hides it well. She has to because she's top dog. But I think what's the psych's name now? The one, Franky's girlfriend, Bridget, that's the one. She can see that B is quite depressed, so she manages to get a visit in from Franky to cheer B up, which is absolutely brilliant. It's kind of like a scene I think all fans were hoping to see, which was great. Because obviously Franky's on the outside now. She's finally become a lawyer. She's still seeing Bridget. We don't really get to see much of Franky from between episodes 3 to 8, but then she comes back kind of full time episode 9 onwards. So Franky basically tells B that the women need their queen, which is kind of like the kick up the arse that B needed. But it's not looking good for B and Allie, and it doesn't really look good for the next 1 or 2 episodes because Allie goes back into drugs. Ferguson is being held in protection. Obviously her hand is being maintained because it's a very badly burn. So, a few storylines that has been happening in the background of, besides this B, Ferguson and Kaz and Allie thing, is we've had a couple of new characters. We've had a new officer called Jake Stewart, who's a good-looking guy. I think the writers tease us in his first 2 episodes whether if he's actually gay or bisexual or straight, because he seems to kind of like take a bit of a fancy to Will and keeps complimenting how fit his body is. But then he seems to be going after Vera as well. So I don't know. I think maybe he's bisexual. I think maybe we'll find out more in the next season. But my personal opinion is I think he might be bisexual, and he's definitely a player. He's definitely one to watch. He's a bit shady, a bit dodgy, but he gets on with Vera in the end. But he's definitely one that's to watch. We also have a new prisoner called Sonia Stevens, who's in on remand. She's suspected of killing her friend, I think it is. But Liz has been offered to help get information and help the police, which she doesn't really go for at the start because obviously she knows what happens to laggers with that Boomer incident. But they offer her, I think it's a free pardon, and everything will be kept from the women, but she can start off as a fresh, complete, clean, free. So she ends up going for it, especially when she first meets Sonia, as Sonia comes across as quite stuck up. But that's a very interesting story, and that's something I think is going to come to a head in the new season. Because towards the end of the series, we kind of discover that Sonia did kill her friend. Well, I don't know. I think it's implying that Sonia killed her friend, because basically by the end of the season, they do find her friend's body, and the police points out that her friend's head was shaved before she was killed. And then in a scene later on in the final episode, we see Sonia shaving Maxine's hair in a bit of a spooky way. And we see Liz sort of like a penny dropping for Liz. But I don't know if the writers are teasing us and there's going to be a bit of a twist down the line. But she's definitely a bit strange to Sonia, though, because in one of those episodes where Liz is sleeping but can't sleep, and then she sort of wakes up and sees Sonia staring through the door at her, a bit spooky. So there's definitely something weird going on there. Maybe she is a serial killer, I don't know. But I'm looking forward to finding out what her storyline is all about. So basically now we are coming to the end of the season. Things are building. I thought the start of episode 11, season 4, was brilliant because we had a bit of a different beginning to it. It was it was Joan basically telling what's his name, Shane Butler, where to find a box, and basically she's still got this I hate Will Jackson campaign going on. And from the beginning of the episode, it looks like she's going to try and get Shane to maybe hurt or kill Mr. Jackson in some form. So yeah, it starts off quite dramatic. But we also have the downfall of B in episode 11 because B has helped Allie get off drugs, but she's struggling to maintain control. This has been ongoing for quite a while now. But in the end, she does lag on Tina, who's brought in a load of drugs supplied by Jake Stewart, who I did say earlier is very dodgy. And then, so B lags to the governor. Jake tells Tina that it was B who lagged. So Tina goes to Kaz, and Kaz announces it to the women and asks B to deny it. And B decides at that point, that's it, she's had enough. She doesn't deny it. Her reasons are she can't stand drugs being brought in time and time again. So she decides to step down from top dog. In quite a memorable scene. It was quite a nice scene because even though it was sad to see her step down, you could see in her face that is what she wanted. She needs a break. So we also have her and Allie finally make love, which seems brilliant until Ferguson attacks Allie in the shower block and injects her with, I'm assuming it's heroin or some sort of drug, but she passes. Allie pretty much looks like she's dead by the end of episode 11 with her eyes wide open. But then B finds her in the season final and she raises the alarm. She's very upset. She thinks it might be Kaz that did it. So her and Kaz have a fight. Not a major fight, but, a fight. But then B discovers later on in the final that it was Ferguson that did it. But there's nothing that she can do because Ferguson is on her way out to court, which at this stage, she's sorted Jake out a deal because Jake had some debts with the drug guys, so Ferguson decided to pay them off for him. But in return, she's asked him to kill Niels Jasper, which what he does, he actually kidnaps him in his prison van and then shoots him and sets fire to him. So that's it. Case dropped. Ferguson walks free. So she goes back to prison, but I think the biggest mistake for Ferguson at this point is that she couldn't resist in letting B know that it was her that injected Allie. Now at this point as well, I think we have found out that Allie isn't going to wake up. There's nothing more that the doctors can do. So B decides to take revenge and finally get rid of Ferguson. Which I think if Ferguson hadn't had told B that it was her that done it, then maybe Ferguson would have walked straight out. But because of that, B was determined to get her back and make her pay. So she gets a big ass screwdriver and they have a bit of a confrontation in the prison grounds. I don't think it's outside the prison like a lot of the fans are saying. I just think it's in an area inside the prison, but where a prisoner wouldn't normally be on their own. But they go head to head. It's very tense. At this point, I think there's barely 5 minutes left of the episode, and it's just like, oh my god, what is going to happen? But Ferguson manages to get the screwdriver off B. So B decides, in a bit of a twist, and bear in mind this is big spoilers, guys, she decides to run up at Ferguson, who's got the screwdriver in her hands, and B stabs herself. And she decides to grab Ferguson, and she keeps stabbing herself with Ferguson holding the screwdriver about 6 times, maybe 5, 6 times. And then Ferguson seems to just pretty much lose it at this point, and she continues herself to stab B a further 6, 7 times, pretty much all the way in. I think the final stab is quite gory because you actually see her hand go up as if it goes all the way up into her heart. You see the size of that screwdriver as well. It was pretty big. I was surprised it didn't go right through her. But then B tells Ferguson that she wins. So B collapses to the floor, and she's obviously done this now, so Ferguson will never get out of jail. But B also gets to be with Allie. But pretty much B is on the floor, and she's pretty much dying. Vera and Will are trying to get an ambulance and trying to help B, but it's pretty much, I don't think there's anyone that can help her at this point. So B looks into the clouds and she sees the seahorses. At the same time, Allie is flatlining in the hospital. And it looks like that they're both just going to die together. So it kind of looks like B is dead by the end of the episode because the camera pans up with B on the floor, a massive pool of blood, and there's no officer. Will and Vera, none of them seem to be doing CPR. So I'm pretty much, she's dead. And the screen goes black, but then all of a sudden there's a big poof because the doctors are resuscitating Allie, and Allie actually wakes up at the very end, it's very heartbreaking and it's very sad. So that's pretty much the whole of season 4. Now, my opinion of the whole season is, when I first saw it, week by week, while it was airing, I enjoyed it. I absolutely love Wentworth. It could get as crap as anything, and I would still watch it because I'm a dedicated fan. But I don't think it was its strongest season, at least not when I first watched it week by week. I think there was always something missing, and it was just a little bit bland. And as much as it all makes sense by the end of season 4, why? Because B seemed to be quite obviously depressed and stuff, but she had no fight in the whole season. But obviously that kind of makes sense by the end of season 4 because obviously they were writing her out. But I actually preferred season 4 the second time I watched it. When I went back a couple of months after it finished, I kind of binge watched it over 3-4 days, and I absolutely loved it more the second time. And I think that kind of happens a lot when I watch TV series. Like when I watch it week by week, you kind of you don't know what to expect. Sometimes the episode could be a little bit of an anticlimax or something. But once it's all been panned out and they're filming for the new season and you've got nothing better to do than to go back and rewatch it, I always enjoy them more the second time around. But I do think season 4 was a brilliant series. But I do think they need to up their game for season 5. Doreen did annoy me in season 4, mainly because she turned her back on B halfway through the season, and the reason why that really annoyed me is because B saved her baby. It was obviously B and Franky, but do you know what I mean? B got her baby out of that fire, so Doreen should be pretty much kissing B's ass no matter what, but unfortunately it doesn't really happen. I do like Doreen, but I think she needs her own storyline now, but not a whingy one. She needs a big storyline herself this season, which hopefully we'll get, because obviously we've lost our main character. But I'm not going to go too much into that, because I'm going to make another video about season 5, about what's to come, about what we already know, and about possible spoilers that is out there on the internet right now. So I didn't really expect this video to be as long as it is. I kind of probably have babbled on a little bit. So I'm going to try and finish this now. There is going to be another video for season 5. Keep your eye out. If you'd like subscribe. This is a brand new channel, so I'm not expecting a lot of views or subscribers at first, but if you want to subscribe, then please subscribe. I'll probably, when season 5 is airing, I'll probably do an episode by episode review week after week. Comment in the if you leave some comments below, let me know what you think. If there's anything that I've missed out, what was your favourite episode? What was your favourite moment? What annoyed you the most of season 4? Leave your comments below, guys, and I'll happily reply to you. All right, thanks for watching.